Hey guys, what's up? This is Oxtane, and with the release of Phase 5 today, I wanted to make some guide videos on how to gear Shaman in AQ for both PvP in a separate video, and today's video, which is for Resto PvE in AQ. What's best in slot, comparing a few different sets of gear. I've heard, a couple different things. What's better, tier 2.5 or tier 2 with big healing, stuff like that. So we'll kind of just go over them, compare them, look at differences in the healing over time on certain fights, things like that, and kind of just break it down. If you want to know what I've done in Classic WoW as a Shaman, I will link to my Twitch channel where you can find VODs of my CDL, which was a dual tournament in Classic WoW. I did okay, and I'm not super experienced. Like I'm not a private server player, right? But I've played Shaman for 15 years since original vanilla WoW, so I do know a decent amount what I'm talking about. I'll also link my logs, my Warcraft logs for Classic for all the phases and both MC and BWL. But I'll leave all that in the description, as well as the gear sets that I made on 60 Upgrades, which is a website you can use to compare gear for Classic WoW. So I'll also put all that in the description down below if you want to use any of the resources that I used in this video. Those will all be down there, and you can kind of look from there. So without further ado, let us get started. So the first question I hear a lot is, what's better, tier 2.5 Shaman for the set bonus or big plus healing with tier 2? So I think it's important to broaden the demographic a little bit and say that not everyone's going to be pushing for a world or server first AQ clear, and some people will just be going in when their raid schedule lines up with whenever AQ's gates are actually opened, right? And most people will be progressing through the raid, which means more than likely you're gonna die, you won't have world buffs, etc. So I think it's important to keep all of that in mind when looking at how you want to gear your character in AQ. I know personally in my raid, we have 6 Shaman, 3 of us are going tier 2.5, and the other 3 are going big plus healing with tier 2. I think that's actually a pretty good way of narrowing down like how most Shaman feel. You already, if you're watching this video and are interested in this, you already have a general idea of what you want to use or what you think you should use for your specific raid. Because again, it depends on comp, speed, overall clear time. Because if you're getting off more casts for tier 2.5, then you're obviously using more mana, right? And I'll break down the stats of all these sets at the beginning. But first, I want to start with the big healing set. So the set I have, and again, I'll link all these in the description below, made at 60 Upgrades. So for the helmet, I would recommend Ron Rigoberto's hat. It drops from Oro in Ahn'Qiraj. It's a pretty decent drop rate, so definitely would recommend that. If you have it going into AQ, I would recommend either a Deviant Growth Cap from the World Boss Lethon or the Crystal Adorned Crown, which technically, if you're going for maximum just plus healing, nothing else, that's really your best option. But I definitely do think Deviant Growth Cap and Don Rigoberto's I would prefer them more if that's the build I was going, because of the MP5. Deviant Growth Cap has 8 mana per 5 and 1 crit, and the same healing as Rigoberto's, but that has 11 MP5 and more int, right? So it really just depends on your play style. Those are the main 3 I would recommend for sure. If you don't have anything else, then maybe something like Helm of the Life Giver. So your best in slot healing neck here is going to be Amulet of the Fallen God, which comes from the Eye of Cthulhu, which is obviously like Head of Neff or Head of Ani, something that just drops every week when you kill Cthulhu, right? Best in slot healing neck for sure. The only bad thing, I guess, is that it doesn't have int, right? Again, if you're going tier 2.5, that might actually be something that you think about. But this in particular is the big healing set, so it's the biggest healing neck in the game, so it's definitely worth it. It won't be too hard to get because it is best in slot, which means you're likely to get it, and it also drops every week, right? So you will get it eventually for sure, as long as you keep raiding. Shoulders, we have Wild Growth, shouldn't be any surprise. Pretty much every healing shaman, more or less at this point in the game, should have these super solid shoulders overall. Obviously with the 33 healing enchant on those, as well as the ZG enchant on Rigoberto's hat. Don't really need to say that. So for Cloak, I would go with Cloak of Clarity, which is also off Cthulhu, Really, really awesome cloak, 40 healing, 8 MP5, and also pretty decent stats on it as well. Also, if you still have it again, or it just doesn't drop for whatever reason, Shroud of Pure Thought off Flamegorn BWL is also a really good option, or just something like Heart of the Wild. Pretty basic stuff. As far as the chest piece, you go from one ugly teal robe, Robes of the Exalted, to Robes of the Guardian Saint. And again, these are absolutely insane. These come from Ahn'Qiraq in Ahn'Qiraj, and an 18% drop rate. So again, just really good. It's a shame that as a healing shaman, you don't really get, you just replace one teal robe with another, but it's definitely way better in every single way from Robes of the Exalted. So, and it does look a little less dumb in my opinion. It's not quite as ugly shade of teal. So there you go. Now, if you want to keep the set bonus, which I would highly recommend for tier 2 because of the 30% chain heal bonus, then you're going to want to use, based on everything that I've laid out here, in my opinion anyway, the best options for you is the bracers, the gloves, and the boots. You can also use the belt, and I'll go over that a little bit later, and we'll just see what you could swap in place of each. So, bracers of 10 storms, good MP5, solid stats in everything like that with 24 healing. Obviously, best in slot weapon would be Scepter of the False Prophet. I mean, this is an easy one. It's listed as an 8% drop rate. Everyone I know that I've played with from private servers says that it's a very hard mace to obtain, like it doesn't drop a lot. In which case, if you're High Warlord, obviously you have the battle mace, so you're all set there already. That's pretty much the second best you could get in the entire game in AQ. And then if you aren't High Warlord and you want a good weapon going into AQ, and maybe you're going for Scarabord, or maybe you just want a good healing weapon if you feel like you won't get prio on Cthulhu Mace, which is what I'm doing, then you might want to get the Fang from the Scarabord question. Even if you don't get Scarabord, you can still get this, which is 121 plus healing, which is really, really good. No MP5, but really solid stats across the board, and still outside of High Warlord or the Cthulhu Mace is going to be the best healing one-hander that you can get in the game. And going into AQ with that, whenever it does open, would be really, really solid. So that's what I'm personally going for as well. So that's a really, really solid option. So the offhand, Sartora's Might is what I would recommend. Obviously it drops off of Sartora in AQ. It's better than Lay the Life Giver just because of the stats, in my opinion. But Lay the Life Giver is technically 2 more healing, but 2 less MP5, right? So just overall it's better. You get int, you get a little bit of stam, and you get 2 more MP5 at the cost of 2 healing. But again, you're also getting the 6 int. So in my opinion, it's definitely worth it. If you don't have either Lay, if you didn't get AV Exalted, or you don't get Sartora's Might for a while, the Worm Scale Blocker of Oro is also decent out of AQ as well, or something like a Red Dragon Scale Protector as well is also an option for sure. Strong int on those well. Now, the fun part is we get Totem in that relic slot. So there's really only one that's really worth using here, and it's off Ahn'Qiraq and AQ, which is Lesser Healing Wave by 80. There are situations for sure where I use Lesser Healing Wave. I know most of the time it's just like Zug brain, like, oh, I'm gonna use Chain Heal, but it's definitely the only main worth using, as the other one is PvP, and then the one of Rebirth, which comes out of Dire Maul East, which is just reduced Ankh time, which there's a talent for. So, I mean, if you really want a super omega fast Ankh, go for that, but not really worth using in any real application. So then, like I said, the gloves as well. We also get healing enchant to gloves in this phase. So put plus 30 healing on that bad boy when someone has the recipe and go to town. Now, the belt here, I suggest 2 options. Either keep your set bonus, because again, it's depending on what pieces you have of tier 2, right, to keep that bonus. So maybe you don't have the belt, maybe you don't have the boots, you know, maybe you don't have other pieces, but try to keep that set as much as you can for sure. So what I put here is Grasp of the Old God. It's definitely the best in slot healing belt for sure. 59 as well as MP5 and 19 int, so really, really strong. Hound belt, again, going into AQ is always a pretty good option as well. Obviously, you don't get the MP5, but you still get just a really, really solid belt. Outside of that, again, so I would recommend keeping something like your tier 2 belt, right, to keep the bonus. So empowered leggings, if you're going maximum, you know, just big dick healing, empowered leggings is really strong. 77 on that bad boy. Or something like Sally's, right? Especially with the MP5, if you're a twisting shaman, you might get more use out of Sally's. And we'll talk about deep resto twisting at the end of the video as well. So yeah, and then the ZG enchant on those for sure. And then I have Greaves of 10 Storms on this set to keep the set bonus. But again, let's say you don't have those and you have the tier 2 belt instead. So then I would recommend the Boots of Pure Thought, which drops off trash in BWL for sure. Or what I use right now on my shaman, if you ranked, is the rank 12 boots are also really strong, because they basically have very similar stats to the tier 2, but they also have MP5, right? Otherwise, yeah, I would use, outside of those that I previously mentioned, if you need to keep the set bonus, obviously, then use the Greaves of 10 Storms, right? Pretty simple. Now, rings is an interesting one because definitely the best, my opinion, would be the Ring of the Martyr off Huhuran in AQ, 51 plus healing and 5 MP5. So really strong ring for sure. Now, that's probably the biggest healing, just pure raw healing, right? And that's the whole point of this set. So that's definitely the way to go. Then I would recommend pure Elementium as the second. Since these aren't unique, that's going to be the maximum. You know, you're getting over 100 plus healing from your 2 rings, right? Now, Ring of the Martyr obviously doesn't have int, but it's big wiener healing, and that's the name of the game. So, and then Elementium obviously is insane. Outside of that, obviously the options are Caught Band. Ring of the Devoured is okay. I'd say it's slightly better than Ring of Blackrock just because of the int, but they're both pretty similar, right? I wouldn't necessarily recommend these. Maybe if you're twisting and you need maximum itemization for MP5, I would definitely recommend it. But outside of that, I would definitely say aim for like a Caught Band out of MC if you can't get Ring of the Martyr right away, or Pure Elementium from BWL. And then Trinket. So obviously Rejuve Gem is like the no-brainer, duh. Second Trinket is always interesting. Shard of the Scale, if you like MP5, if you're a Twisting Shaman, is obviously, for a Twisting Shaman, is pretty much best in slot for sure. I've even seen some Mind Tap talismans that's like, you know, just for people that don't have Shard of the Scale like me. It's the budget Shard of the Scale. I mean, honestly, if you had it, a Nelth tier, to be quite honest, just because it's healing and damage, right? So if you get a hand-me-down Nelth tier, slap that baby on, to be quite honest. At least situationally, right? Overall, though, what I use and what I'll probably still continue to use in AQ is Zandalarian Hero Charm, especially, you know, just with that set bonus and the big healing, getting another 400, you know, and then obviously exponentially goes down, but, you know, a couple more 100 plus healing for 20 seconds on top of, with this set, you get well over 1,000 as a base is insane, right? So your rank 1s are going to heal for a butt ton. So I would still recommend Hero Charm as like your second on-use trinket, but situationally, maybe a Nelth tier I could definitely see, or something like that. Now, I think the one that's interesting to think about is Scarab Brooch. So if you're not familiar with this trinket, basically it puts an absorb shield on the target that you're healing that is 15% of the amount that you healed. So on top of healing what you're already healing to that target, you're getting 15% of that more in healing, essentially, on the target. Now, the reason why this might not be as good as maybe it seems at first is because of world buff caps. So your main tank's pretty much out if you're a full world buffing guild and you haven't wiped, right? And this is a trinket that maybe over time would become less and less good or worthwhile just because of that fact, right? As well as many in the melee won't necessarily want any buffs knocked off potentially. So it's really interesting to see how it works, right? And it might be good for a soaking fight like Princess, for example. I'll really have to see it more in action to actually get a real situation of how it will be. It's hard for me to judge. I'm not a private server player. I don't have a lot of experience with this trinket, but on the surface, it seems like it could be pretty disgusting. It's just situationally not knocking off buffs, stuff like that. So, but if you can pick it up, definitely would recommend that for sure. So that's the big healing, and then I won't go over a lot of the other items in this tier 2.5 set just because for pretty much everything else like cloak, neck, it's literally the same, right? So obviously instead you're just going to go with the full 5 set of the storm collars for helm, shoulders, chest, legs, and boots, obviously, to get pretty much everything outside of that is more or less the same. And then obviously for you're gonna keep your tier 2, so it's gonna again be the bracers, the gloves, and then the belt, because that's the only way that you can even keep the bonus, right? So, and then more or less again the same options, right? I believe in this set we'll go over the stats here. So with the tier 2.5 plus T2 set, I'll put it up here, you get about 8 more int. I believe you get 865 plus healing, and you get 59 mana per 5, 9% crit, right? But if you go to the big healing set, then you have 73 MP5, so you get even more. Actually, you get 1,048 healing, but you get a few percentage less crit. So if you're deep resto, you know, crit can be a little bit more impactful, but again, you have, what is it, like almost 200 more plus healing, so does it really matter? Not really. And also, again, for Twisting Shaman, like, you're going to have a little bit more int, and you're going to have a lot more MP5. So, personally, for Twisting Shaman, I would definitely recommend the big heal. Maybe swap out some of the bigger healing items with just MP5 items and kind of just leave it at that, right? That's more or less what I would do. In conclusion, I hope I didn't ramble on too much here. Basically, it doesn't matter too much which one you decide to focus on. If it suits your playstyle, then go for it, because the numbers are so close to each other that honestly, it doesn't really matter that much. I mean, again, a lot of things are gonna be considered here. What are your kill times in your raid early on? Are you gonna be twisting? Are you gonna be deep resto? These are all things you should consider. If you have more questions, you can feel free to leave a comment. This is my first YouTube video in a long time, so go easy on me. But yeah, I'd love to answer any questions you guys have. Again, all the resources, the sets I built on this website, everything, charts, all kinds of resources that I found and while researching this topic and kind of just figuring out what I know. I will put all of that in the description below, again, to my Warcraft logs, things like that, so you can see my raid composition, our kill times, and BWL, and then you can kind of base it on yours and look at my gear and what I have and what I use. And then, again, if you want to monitor what I do in AQ, then I'd be willing to also share on that for sure. One more thing is talents. There's not a lot of deviation in the top builds. You're really either deep resto or you're totem twisting. Personally, if you have a choice in your raid, I would recommend going deep resto into AQ progression until you get it on farm and you get some faster clear times. I personally think there's not as much value in twisting unless your guild is hardcore and a private server guild and is going to push for like a server first, faction first, or just really going to slam at week 1, right? Without a doubt, then totem twisting with a bunch of warriors is definitely going to be, you know, maximizing your efficiency and your kill times. But overall, for your average player, I would recommend, if you have a choice for your raid, going deep resto at least the first few weeks of progression, get a feel of it. If you are currently a totem twisting shaman, or if you're currently deep resto, then staying that way, and then transition back into totem twisting if that's what your current role is. Either your raid wants you to be that, or you like that style of gameplay more, then transition back into that, right? So if that is what you're going for, again, I would recommend more of a big healing set. But again, even if you're a Totem Twisting Shaman with tier 2.5, it's not going to make as much of a difference. You're just going to go quicker on top of twisting, right? So bring lots of dark runes, mana pots, etc. So thanks for hanging out, guys. Appreciate it. Hope you guys liked the video. Hope I didn't ramble too much here. Again, been back a little. This is my first video back since Classic launched. But I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll also be doing a PvP video that should be out around the same time as this video for Phase 5. So if you're interested in that and you like the PvP, check out that video as well. And I will see you guys in the next one. See ya.